What is up, Armchair Fandom? Back to you with another video. We're going to bring Darth Pane in here in a minute. Looks like he's taking a nap. But if you like our videos, go ahead and click like and subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section below and hit the notification bell. And you'll be notified each time we have a new video uploaded. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. What you doing, taking a nap?
Oh, Lucas, I totally forgot you were going to call. We were going to do this video, man. I was studying up, getting all my show notes and everything. And then when I heard we was going to do that, I decided to start reading about the Sith instead. It's much more interesting.
Yeah, I called you and asked you if you wanted to review this episode. You was eating Cheetos and reading comic books is what you was doing.
Actually, sir, you're incorrect about that. I was eating Doritos and reading comic books. Let's get it correct, sir.
Episode 4, man. I've mentioned to you the last few days that episode 2 and 3, episode 1 skyrocketed me. I was really excited. Episode 2 and 3 didn't go down. It just stayed there. And episode 4, man, it skyrocketed another level for me. This show, man, at the end of episode 4, it's a completely different ball game with everything that's happened going up to this point. There's so many different things that could actually be going on, which we'll get to when we get to the end of this episode and talk about it. But it's crazy, man.
You told me that everything else pales. That this show stinks compared to like Twilight series.
Oh yeah.
The rest of reeks.
Yeah, sure I did. Sure I did.
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay, my fault, man. Must have got you confused with somebody else.
I mean, this ain't as good as Tango and Cash, but it's still pretty good.
Now you're talking about an action movie, sir.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed episode 4. I mean, again, it started off and it had I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. It had a Raiders of the Lost Ark type vibe to it.
Yeah, it did. It did, but it was a lot more tense and creepy than Raiders of the Lost Ark ever thought about being, in my opinion.
Without question.
Yeah.
You get
so
and everything, and you see that, and just taking them bodies out and everything. It's like, holy cow, man! This reminds me of the Mummy.
Yeah. So we pick up where episode 3 left off. Layla and Steven's in control of the body now. So that happened during episode 3. Steven was actually the one that helped Khonshu bring the stars into alignment, now that I think about it, because it was the Mr. Knight costume, and not the Moon Knight costume that helped him do it. So it was Steven that was in control. But we got Layla and Steven on their way to following the map to try to get to Ahmet's tomb. And they enter this tomb. When they first enter in, the first thing I thought about, the only reason I know this because I don't read the comics, is listening to other people cover this stuff. But the first thing they encounter when they enter this tomb is two big panther-looking statues guarding the entrance, which reminded me of Black Panther in the astral plane,
Right.
or whatever they call the afterlife plane. And
plane, yep.
Yeah, the ancestral plane of Wakanda. So, I mean, this show has so many things going on that could tie into the properties that's coming out the rest of this year. I mean, this could tie into the multiverse of madness. Still, in my opinion, it could tie into Thor: Love and Thunder still, because we got, Gore the God Butcher showing up in that one. This show is full of Egyptian gods. Who knows if it'll tie into the Eternals and the Celestials and that story arc. It could tie into Shang-Chi. I mean, it's almost like they've set this Moon Knight show up to be like I don't know, like a thread that combines all these. It's going to bring all these properties together somehow.
I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Every episode, they've all been a minimum of almost 55 minutes. So, I mean, as far as I can tell, except for the Loki show, almost every other MCU Disney Plus show has always been in the 40-minute deal. And I'm just I wonder if there's a special reason they're having the Moon Knight episodes be longer than all the rest of them. But they've all been well over the 50-minute time period mark on these things. And I guess they got to squeeze in a lot of stuff into the I can figure.
Well, I mean, I'm just talking about basically the subject matter and how it can tie in, if you think about it, into all the properties that we've had in the past and moving forward. It's
that's why you've got the longer episodes. And with Love and Thunder coming out, and you're going to have Gore the God Butcher. I got a feeling that Khonshu and some of these other ones might want to be looking over their shoulder with Christian Bale to come kill them all.
Yeah. So they get to Ahmet's tomb. They pass these big cat statues guarding the entrance. When they get in there, they end up in this one room, and Steven figures out that this tomb is designed like the Eye of Horus. And he designs the Eye of Horus in the sand that's covering this one structure, which when the light reflects off of it, casts the Eye of Horus on the ceiling. But they're basically just making their way through this tomb of Ahmet is basically what they're doing.
Yep, it's like a maze.
Yeah,
it kind of, like I said, kind of reminded me of Raiders of the Lost Ark a little bit. It also reminded me a little bit of Alien versus Predator in the sense that you had those pyramids and there was always stuff moving in them and everything. And it was a nice little callback to that. But like you say, one of the things I thought was kind of fascinating was when Arthur Harrow started talking to Layla, and he really knows about her backstory. That was a major story curve.
Yeah. Before we move any further, one thing that happened at the beginning of this episode is in episode 3, Khonshu was summoned or sentenced, basically his judgment from the other gods for interfering with man's whatever. He was put into this little stone sculpture that looked like him, but at the beginning of this episode, one of the other gods takes that sculpture and puts it in this wall that's got all these other stone sculptures. So it's almost like they're being taken out one by one.
Right.
I don't know who's doing that, if it's one of the other gods, or I don't know what all's going on story-wise for that happening. I think that's going to be important.
It looked like one of the avatars from one of the other gods was doing that. And that reminded me of another movie that I seen have figures like that. Was the old Clash of the Titans that had Laurence Olivier and Harry Hamlin. the Greek gods, used figures of people like that moving around, except it wasn't always just the gods. But I thought that was a nice throwback to that as well.
Yeah. So we're in the tomb. They make their way into this one area of the tomb that has these mummified priests, basically, is what they are. In these, I believe that's what they are. There may be something else, but they're mummified, but they're standing guard over this one section of the tomb back in these crevices. And while they're in there, they're getting ready to go to another part of the tomb. They hear gunfire, and before that, they see a trail of blood. It looks like almost an altar where stuff's being sacrificed. There's a trail of blood, all kinds of pieces of flesh laying everywhere. It looks like a body's been drugged off into another part of the tomb with bones laying everywhere, which gives you a very creepy feeling in this moment. But then that leads into, they hear this clicking sound, and this zombified mummy creature that doesn't have a tongue is basically dragging this guy in there to do the same thing to him, and they have to scatter and go hide.
Yeah. And he ends up chasing Layla, and then once she disposes of him, and she handles herself very well in that, then Arthur Harrow comes out of the daggone one of the corners and starts revealing to her all about the situation, how her father died, who was responsible, and really making her question her relationship with Mark.
Yeah, they get separated.
Right.
In that moment, Stephen and Layla get separated. She runs off into the main part of the tomb. He goes, looks like a side passageway. They end up meeting up later, but like you said, it leads to her having a confrontation with that creature that was we was introduced to just a few scenes before that. She ends up fighting it and getting the upper hand on it and killing it. And then Arthur Harrow shows up around the corner, like you said, and starts casting doubt in her mind about Mark Spector's role, her husband, in the death of her dad, who was an archaeologist. And after she runs off and leaves him, prior to that, simultaneously to that going on, Stephen has taken his side passage, which leads him into the main chamber of Ahmet's tomb.
Yeah. And it turns out that's the MCU version of Alexander the Great. And that's where he finds the object they're looking for.
Well, it's actually Alexander. The story twist right there was that it's actually Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
It's his tomb. Yeah. And he was the last avatar of Ahmet.
Right.
And he figures out, Stephen figures out that what they're looking for is down the throat of Alexander the Great's mummy. So he pulls the thing off of the casket, exposing the Alexander the Great's mummified body. He has to reach down into the body to get this relic. Did I can't remember right now. Did it show us what the relic is?
It did, but you didn't get a very long look at it, because by that time Layla comes into the chamber, and then her and Stephen start having that discussion about, what happened.
Mark.
And all.
Yeah, her and Mark start having the discussion.
Yeah, well, I think, is it Stephen controlling the body at first, and then Mark takes over while they start having the discussion about it?
Yeah, that's it. That's how it happens. Yeah, that's how it happens. And then they're arguing about that, and then Harrow and his men show up, and Mark tells her to run, and Mark takes a axe that he got out of Alexander the Great's coffin and kills 3 of these guys, at which point Arthur Harrow takes a pistol and shoots him twice in the chest. And you don't know what the heck's going on at this point, and he falls back into this water, which shows him start descending deeper and deeper into this water. And all of a sudden, this is where the show and this episode and the show at large took a drastic turn, because we're introduced to a mental ward, and our character, Mark Spector, is tied to a wheelchair, and everybody that's been in the show so far are patients in this psychiatric ward, even the nurses. Arthur Harrow ends up being the psychiatrist that's working on him. I mean, so many things we've seen in this show so far show up in the psychiatric ward. There was a bakery truck, a cake truck that showed up in one episode, and the orderly's pushing a cupcake cart across the room. Layla's in this psychiatric ward as a patient, and we don't know what the heck's going on. Mark doesn't know what the heck's going on. He's drugged from being a psychiatric patient. He's pushed into this one room where Arthur Harrow is the psychiatrist, and he's trying to deal with him over his split personality disorder, which I got an idea about that. What did you take away in general when all that started happening?
Well, it's such a, like you said, a drastic shift in terms of the way the episode's going on. And then you see that they're having bingo, of all things, in this mental ward. And it's like, it shows them the schedules and all this stuff. The next thing you know, it's like Arthur's acting like he's trying to help Mark, and all Mark's trying to do is get out of there.
Yeah.
And he manages to fight off both of Arthur's goons and ends up going through a chase thing through the entire ward. And then when he is when they gives Arthur's goons the slip, he turns around and there you see him and Stephen both together. Somebody's encased in like a tomb. He opens the tomb and it's Stephen. So him and Stephen separated, talking to each other, trying to figure out a way to get out of there.
Yeah. That was I don't know what's going on. I'm interested to see next Wednesday what happens after this. I do know by watching some other channels that there's a boat that takes the souls of those who have deceased to the afterlife to be judged on whether they get to stay in the afterlife or be cast out into darkness. And when he runs down the hall at that one point, when he escapes the Harrow's office, he's running down the hall of the psychiatric ward. There's one scene where the carts come rolling down at the other end of the hall, and the lights are going back and forth, making it look like almost he's on the inside of a ship somehow.
Yeah. It's and then like you say, once they're going down the hall, at the very end of the hall, it opens up the door, and what do we see standing there? Apparently, an Egyptian hippo god.
Yeah.
Which I was aware existed, but apparently it does exist, and I'm sure there's a story with this sucker, and that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. He, like you said, he gives the guards the slip, and when he turns around, he sees this coffin rocking back and forth. Somebody inside of it screaming, "Get me out of this thing!" And when he opens it, it's Stephen. So you got Oscar Isaacs playing two different characters. Like through the rest of this show leading up to this, we've had these personalities encased in one body, but now it's like these personalities have their own body, but both of them are Oscar Isaac. Right. And they've been in conflict up to this point, but you see these two personalities at this moment when this is all happening, they embrace each other. Like instead of fighting each other for control, they're happy to see each other.
Yeah, they know to get out of there.
Well, I mean, there was one question he asked him. Mark asked Stephen, he said, "What's the last thing you remember?" And he says, "Harrow's shooting me." And he was like, "Exactly." So it wasn't just something that he made up, because both of these personalities remember that same moment, even though Mark was in control of the body at that time. So it wasn't just something he made up in his head. It's something that they both remembered. So who knows what's going on right now? But like you said, they run down the hall, and that door opens, and that hippopotamus is standing there, and all it does is say, "Hi."
And it's like, what?
And they start screaming at the top of their lungs. This is a great episode, man. I loved it. I mean, I just absolutely loved it.
It was I'll say that it's like you said, each episode is continuously, and they've done this with a lot of their Disney Plus MCU shows. Picks up steam. I think the last 2 episodes are really going to be huge. You're going to have action. There's going to be length. There's going to be story closure. There's going to be a lot happening in these next 2 episodes.
I think we're going to be introduced a lot to the. I don't know how this plays into the larger MCU, but I believe we're going to see a lot more unfold. There's so many storylines, which I mentioned in our review of episode 3, that are taking place right now that's got mystery behind them. You got the story with Layla and Mark Spector and what happened with her dad. You got, which brings me to another point, when they're running down the hallway after he releases Steven from the coffin. You got 2 Oscar Isaac characters running down the hallway. They run past this room, and there's a third coffin sitting there shaking back and forth. I believe that's what you mentioned last episode, was a character named Jake Lockley. I believe he's probably in that third coffin. So there's a third personality in there, and you got that story unfolding. You got all these the stories of the history between all these gods, the Egyptian gods, and how they played out. You still got Osiris out there, this hippopotamus god. I forget what they called it. But at the intro to this show each week, you can see that hippopotamus god in one of them little stone statues that Khonshu was put in at the end of episode 3. So there's a ton of storylines culminating. That's going to culminate in the last 2 episodes.
Well, so more than likely Khonshu is going to have to get free in the next episode, because I think you're getting a lot of Moon Knight coming up actually in the costume for the next 2 episodes. And that's where I think it's really going to pick up even more steam and get even more action.
Now, is this going to be, do you foresee them going back into their 3 personalities in one body, or how's that going to play out?
I think it's going to be 3. Again, I don't have anything to base this on. My personal opinion is I believe all 3 will end up back in the same body, because they're going to need to have the character of Moon Knight. Somehow Khonshu's got to get free so they can access that power. Because when Mark got shot by Arthur Harrow, everybody probably thinking, why don't he change the Moon Knight? He couldn't change the Moon Knight because Khonshu is, indisposed, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So he couldn't turn into Moon Knight. It was just him. Thankfully for him, he at least has mercenary skills he could rely on at that time. But unfortunately, it don't help you against bullets.
No, they don't. Like you said, and I figured Layla's going to come back here and try to, help him too. So a lot's going to tie in these next 2 episodes. Khonshu's going to get free. He's going to get Moon Knight's powers back. But here's the question: when Arthur Harrow does free, what's the name of the god that he's trying to free again?
Amit.
When he frees Amit, what kind of power is he going to have? Is he going to get some kind of upgrade too, or is he just going to walk around with a dragon cane?
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know what kind of power he's going to have. He's already wielding some kind of power.
Yeah.
Because of the magic we've seen him wield in episode 2. Yeah, man, I'm really excited to see where the last 2 episodes take us. I'm curious if the character of Moon Knight's even going to continue, since this is being referred to as a limited series.
I think it will. I have heard that I think there's only going to be 1 season of Moon Knight, but they're going to have him appear in future MCU projects, because they're trying to put together the Midnight Suns, which is a supernatural group that consists of him, Blade, Ghost Rider, and characters like that. And Doctor Strange is associated with them as well.
Yeah, I know you like Ghost Rider.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard you talk about Ghost Rider. So, yeah, there's so many aspects of the Marvel comics that the MCU hasn't even delved into real deep yet. I mean, you got the X-Men that's coming in. You got the stuff you're talking about. There's so many villains that we haven't even touched the surface with.
Fantastic Four.
The Fantastic Four coming. Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to still. Even though I've been disappointed the last couple of years, I think it's had to have to do with COVID and have to do with some of their story decisions. But I'm still excited about the MCU a lot more than I am Star Wars.
Well, I agree. And the thing of it is, when you have Endgame and such a big climax to that, it takes a while to build up momentum into something similar to that. I mean, that was such a huge ending and such a big movie. It's hard to have you got to generate another type of big story like that, and they're doing it now with Disney Plus shows and movies. But
yeah, they are doing it. They're building something, man. I just don't know what they're doing.
But, Feige has a plan. I'm sure he's got an idea. It's just a matter of we'll have to wait and see what's going to end up being.
Yeah, but yeah, they're definitely building something. There's too many similarities between these shows. Like I mentioned last episode 3 review. I mean, you got Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. This could play into. You got Thor: Love and Thunder. This storyline could play into with Gore the God Butcher. You got what's the movie coming out toward the end of the year? Black Panther 2. We've already seen an ancestral a hint to the afterlife, which was just basically different versions based on the culture, but it's basically the same thing. And yeah, so I think Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness here in a few weeks I think it's going to be amazing, man. I think we're going to learn a lot through Scarlet Witch's character and what's going on with her trying to make contact with her 2 sons from WandaVision.
I've heard they got big plans for Elizabeth Olsen because they signed her to another contract extension. So they got big plans for the Scarlet Witch character, apparently.
Yeah, which I don't mind. I like that character.
No, it's a guy like it too. I always liked the character as a kid.
Yeah, well, the one thing good about that character, people, they want to act like we just get upset because they cast women in these roles or whatever. That doesn't bother me at all. Scarlet Witch, I love that character, but she didn't just show up and start kicking everybody's butt. They introduced her all the way back in Avengers Age of Ultron. And they built her character over numerous movies.
I don't know if they'll pay it off or not, but Scarlet Witch is technically the daughter of Magneto. Now, I don't know if they're going to have that pay off in the MCU or not, but Wanda Maximoff's got a lot of story arc in her character's history. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, man, that's pushing us close to 30 minutes. I think we'll end it there. If you like any of our videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave comments, hit the notification bell. I mean, if you've been watching YouTube real long, and we have to always say that, then you need to go back to your YouTube tutorial. But please support our channel. Ashley, you got anything to add?
Well, like I said, I think you said it all. Look for us on Twitter, Facebook, and be sure to leave comments. All comments are appreciated and welcome, especially those that support the Sith and Darth Pane.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm going to let that one slide.
You let a lot of things slide, but we won't go there.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, later.